tonight on City News. Waiariki MP Te Rotorua Flavel met with Prime Minister John Key today to discuss a possible coalition agreement. This year's Get Ready Week is underway with events happening throughout the city, and iwi gather on Friday night to celebrate success in the sporting arena at the 2014 Te Arawa Awards. Waiariki MP and Māori Party co-leader Te Rotorua Flavel met with the Prime Minister today to outline his proposal for a possible coalition agreement between the two parties. Mr Flavel told City News before he left for Wellington that the Māori Party has worked successfully with the National Party for the past 6 years, and he hopes to continue to do so.
I'm fairly clear that a ministerial portfolio is where the action's at, where you can make some gains. Sure, you can make some policy gains, but when you've got a ministerial role, it's far easier to do that. So we'd be hopeful of getting a ministerial position, which would help us promote the policies we believe is appropriate, but also influence the government by way of some of the other committees in Parliament, whether that be by appointments, whether it be by the Treaty of Waitangi committees and so on. I don't really know all the lay of the land, to be truthful, but it's about having influence. If you're not, most people go to Parliament to make sure that they can have some serious influence. The downside about our political structures and the Westminster structure is that some parties will win and be able to get those policy gains, other parties will not, and they'll be stuck like that for 3 years.
And we have more from re-elected MPs Te Rotorua Flavel and Todd McClay later in the show. This year's Get Ready Week is underway with events happening throughout the city. Rotorua District Council Emergency Management Coordinator Pauline Hitchcock says this year's theme is What Would You Do?
So it's a campaign to bring awareness to the public, really. It happens every year. And the theme this year is What Would You Do? So we're asking everybody the question, posing them a scenario. Major earthquake has just struck, you're at work. What would you do? So really we're trying to promote individuals and communities to get their own plans together and their survival kits and everything that they need to support themselves during that time.
For more information on events and to enter special competitions for Get Ready Week, go to rdc.govt.nz. Rehearsals are underway for Rotorua Little Theatre's next production, Out of Order. Director Jenny Hodge says audiences are in for a bit of naughty British humour.
Very funny play, written by Ray Cooney, who's he specialises really in English farces, and I've directed several of them. And I thought since this was an election year, politicians behaving badly was a good subject.
So is this about dirty politics?
Not quite. Not close, but not quite.
Now, have you had a run through of the play already?
We've been in rehearsal for several weeks. The set builders have been down there. The wardrobe ladies have been busy making costumes. We've got Warren Houston's going to come and paint our set. It's going to look absolutely sumptuous. Regal was the word used to describe it.
Rotorua's Little Theatre production of Out of Order is on at Shambles Theatre from the 9th to the 24th of October. In sport tonight, iwi gather on Friday night to celebrate success in the sporting arena at the 2014 Te Arawa Awards. Organised by Te Papatākaro o Te Arawa, the awards also recognise outstanding youth and kaumātua leaders in the iwi.
The Te Arawa Awards simply about celebrating successes and achievements and excellence through the Te Arawa region, and in three main categories, things that have been happening throughout our iwi, amongst our sporting athletes, and as well as with rangatahi.
Why is it important to have these awards?
I think it's really important to celebrate any achievements. These days there's a whole lot of negative things out there, and I think it's great to just focus on the positive at least once a year and celebrate those things that are going on that are really nice and really well done.
The Te Arawa Awards are on this Friday night at Distinction Hotel. Due weather update now. Tonight, fine westerlies overnight, a low of 7. Tomorrow Wednesday, mainly fine, southwest easing, a high of 19 and low of 5. Outlook to Thursday, mainly fine, light winds, a high of 18 and low of 7. Marine forecast for Lake Rotorua for Wednesday, southwest easing to 10 knots early morning, rising to 15 knots for a time during afternoon. Waves less than half a metre. Fine weather. Still to come tonight on City News, our first interviews with re-elected MPs Todd McClay and Te Roro Flavel, and we meet the new manager of the Rotorua Youth Centre, Steve Holmes.
The catchphrase of the weekend, 3 more years. Not only does that pertain to the government, but that also pertains to our local electorate. Todd McClay, another 3 more years.
That's right, yeah, really looking forward to it. I'm quite humbled and taken aback by the ongoing support I receive from the wider Rotorua electorate, and I'm even more determined to keep working hard and delivering for and with the people of Rotorua.
You know what was interesting when I looked at the numbers, Todd, is that there were 16,046 Rotorua community members who voted for National, but 17,180 that voted for you. Yeah. What does that tell you?
It tells me that people have recognised the hard work that we've done, but it's not really about an MP, it's really about the work we do in a community. There are also a few, some of the parties don't have candidates here, so whilst they might give their vote to a particular party, they're not able to vote for that party's candidate. But Greens, for instance, don't stand anybody in Rotorua. But look, that's a lot of vote. The result is quite similar to the last 2 elections I've been involved in, and again it makes me determined to keep working as hard as I can for the people of Rotorua.
Now we have 3 MPs, local MPs. How's that going to work? What are your views?
Yeah, looking forward to it. We've had 3 MPs before, so when I first stood 6 years ago against Steve Chadwick and won, she was a list MP. Te Roro Flavel is a fantastic member of Parliament. He's really passionate about this area. I've worked well with him over the last 6 years, and that will continue. I know Fletcher from New Zealand First quite well, who's got him on the list. We're quite friendly actually, and have been for the last 3 or 4 years. We have been exchanging text messages, and we're going to have a coffee this morning. He's on his way to Wellington and I'll be there this afternoon, so we said we'll have the coffee there. He and I have a lot in common. You know, we're good family men, we're very passionate about Rotorua. I think we'll all be able to leave the party politics in Wellington and focus on what's good for our community and find ways to work together, and I look forward to that.
That's wonderful to hear, actually. Also, what areas would you like to work in?
This is very much about Rotorua, so there's a lot of things we campaigned on that we want to get on and start doing quite quickly. I spoke with Mayor Chadwick at some length yesterday, Sunday, on the phone, and with Mayor Ross Patterson over in the Tipoki area as well. So a lot of things that I as a local MP, government and councils need to start focusing on doing together. During the campaign, we met thousands and thousands of people on the doorsteps in their homes and their workplaces, and actually there were some quite good ideas of things that they were ambitious around, wanted to be done. So it would take a bit of time to reflect on that. But in as far as any responsibility ministerially in Wellington, I very much enjoyed the roles that I've had. Associate tourism is quite important for Rotorua. Very much enjoyed being Minister of Revenue. You know, if we're not collecting the $55 billion a year that the government needs, other ministers don't get to spend that money, but that's up to the Prime Minister, and so I'm very happy with the result locally and delighted to be Rotorua's MP.
Now, not only are you friends with Fletch now, but also Tamati gave you a call on the night to congratulate you. Yeah,
he did. It's a tradition that, Steve Chadwick on the 2 occasions came to visit me. So, look, it will be a difficult time for him. Campaigns are very long and they can be quite lonely, and it takes a lot of effort. So, I very much enjoyed the campaign here, but I'm absolutely just focused on, the next 3 years. I've enjoyed the last 6 years as a local member of Parliament. I view this as a vote of confidence, but it's not about complacency, it's about continuing to do the job that people voted for me to do.
One of the interesting things that come out in the interview after John Key's speech was about being a more inclusive government. What does that mean?
Well, it is certainly about being inclusive. So the numbers at the moment are looking like National could govern alone. First time under MMP that's ever happened. But the Prime Minister was sending a very clear signal to New Zealanders that actually that the government of the last 6 years has achieved the things it's been able to because we've worked with other parties, and that he will want to continue to do that. So he's indicated that we could look to work with the Māori Party and with Peter Dunn from United Future and with the ACT Party as well. Those negotiations will need to take place over the next couple of days. But again, it's a very clear signal that it's not about us, the National Party, or us, the politicians. It's about New Zealanders, and we want to be as inclusive as we can be.
And so a message to our electorate?
Well, the next 3 years is going to be hectic, it's going to be fun, it's going to be energetic, but it's going to be very, very hard working. I've got a meeting Monday morning, straight after the election. Yesterday, Sunday, I had a bit of a rest, went out and had lunch with my family, did some sleeping on the couch, but today it's straight back to work. Elections happen once every 3 years. The real work as an MP is the rest of that time. So there's a lot we can do together, and I remain committed in being part of this community. You've got to walk the walk in the area that you want to represent. I'm just so grateful for the support I've received, and I'm looking forward to working with local people over the next 3 years.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
3 more years, and that's not only true for the National Party, but it is also true for the Māori Party. How are you feeling? I know it's a question that everyone asks, but let's start with that.
I'm pretty relieved to have come through the campaign. I'm happy that I'm back in again for another 3 years. I'm pleased and excited about the opportunities that might come in the short space in time if we conclude negotiations with the Prime Minister about how the Māori Party might fit in the governing arrangement. So it's looking good. Very pleased.
So let's look at the Waiariki electorate, because there was 3,831 Māori who voted for the Māori Party, but then you got 7,973 votes personally for the electorate. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's whether I win by one or whatever, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the first thing is that I'm back in. That's important. I think the other statistic that many people don't talk about is the number of people who didn't vote, which is about 45% of the Māori vote, Māori electorate, and that I doubled my majority. So all of those are good stats, but they were all academic in a sense, because I'm back in, and that's all that matters.
And so were you surprised then by being the only Māori seat that got through?
For the Māori Party, well, we always know it's going to be hard because our political opponents have, over this campaign, and I'm talking about Internet Mana, have run a campaign about some mistruths and lies about the Māori Party. The downside of that was that they lost, and we also lost. That's the downside. It was always going to be pretty hard work, but I'm pleased that Waiariki as an electorate have seen the benefits of having somebody in the tent, as it were, because while there are 7 electorates and 6 of them are sitting with Labour, actually they are of no use to anyone, simply because they're sitting in opposition. Whereas I, by myself, will be sitting hopefully in a governing arrangement which will allow the Māori Party, and indeed myself, to be able to make some gains enough to suggest to the Māoridom that they have to rethink how they vote and think strategically as opposed to just Labour or National, because if they did that, they're only going to be right half the time. Actually, if they did strategically vote, Māori Party could be at the table of government either side of the political spectrum, and I think that the big message is that Māoridom must wake up to that sort of situation.
So let's go on that, because National could vote alone. However, they've said, and John Key put it out there, he said the Māori Party and in particular yourself. Have you heard from him?
Yep, as it happens, we have had a phone call yesterday and looking to have negotiations in the near future, in fact tomorrow, to present how we want to go. You're right that the national government can govern by themselves, but that's always been the case for us, that they've always had the majority anyway, and that the Māori Party hasn't been needed in the last 2 terms. We're there by invitation. And because of that, the suggestion is that the Prime Minister believes that we provide something extraordinary, provide something that is good for the country, provide some common sense policy and some things that he believes is good for a relationship. So bearing in mind it's the 3rd time now that we've been asked, I think that the people of the country have seen that we do provide some stability and some good ideas. I mean, I think that's based on the fact that there was a large number of non-Māori who also voted with their party vote for the Māori Party, which tells you that people are finally learning that if you vote for the Māori Party, actually anybody can vote for the Māori Party, not just Māori.
Now, is there any particular job that you'd like to have or that you'd like to do?
I'm fairly clear that a ministerial portfolio is where the action's at, where you can make some gains. Sure, you can make some policy gains, but when you've got a ministerial role, it's far easier to do that. So we'd be hopeful of getting a ministerial position, which would help us promote the policies we believe is appropriate, but also influence the government by way of some of the other committees in Parliament, whether that be by appointments, whether it be by the Treaty of Waitangi committees and so on. I don't really know all the lay of the land, to be truthful, but it's about having influence. If you're not, I mean, most people go to Parliament to make sure that they can have some serious influence. The downside about our political structures and the Westminster structure is that some parties will win and be able to get those policy gains, other parties will not. And they'll be stuck like that for 3 years.
Yeah. Now, you've already had an influence, but now this time you're hoping for an even bigger influence. What are some of the projects that you're wishing to complete?
Well, we haven't sort of drawn it all up yet, but I mean, I think we signalled in the election campaign the continuation and expansion of whānau ora as a key platform. We want to certainly look at the issues of poverty and the effect of poverty on children. That's got to be important for us because that's how we establish the ministerial committee on poverty. So we want to try and work on that end, but also look at the other end about business development, about economic opportunities, those sorts of things, because we don't want to be in a negative space. So it's across the board, that sort of length and breadth of where we want to make some influence, and I think that we should be looking forward to doing that.
Now, we're quite lucky here in Rotorua because we now have 3, Tabito, yourself and Macleay. How are you feeling about working with them both?
There's never been a problem working with the other MPs, even with Stevie Chadwick. I haven't got a problem at all, and hopefully we can come together in promoting Rotorua as we should, because it's home base, and let's just see how it goes. I mean, it's sometimes you're at the behest of your masters and your leader. So Fletcher, while I know him quite well, he might be at the behest of his Mr. Winston Peters, who might say you're not allowed to do that. Who knows? But we'll see what happens. Hopefully we can, form up a good, positive working relationship into the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, bye. Nice to be here.
We're down here at the Rotorua Youth Centre to catch up with the new manager, Steve Holmes. So Steve, what's your background? How did you get this job down here at the Youth Centre?
So I've been in youth work since about 2001, or children's and youth work from the age of 18, working with different church groups, and got involved with the police youth development team to kick it all off. And from there I was offered a job with the Rotorua Community Youth Centre, where I worked for 5.5 years. Left there in early 2009, got into tourism, and back into the social sector, and finally I find myself back here in the youth centre.
And are you a local boy?
Yes, I am, born and bred.
How have you found adjusting to the role?
It's been a really good fit, actually. I think there was a lot of reasons why I wanted to come back, and then having come back here, it's just been the right time and a really good fit back into the organisation.
And what projects have you got at the moment?
There's a lot happening here. When I was involved in the youth centre before, it was of course the health centre, and it was kind of revolved around a drop-in centre type of thing, whereas now it's all revolves around engaging young people. So although we still have a cafe, young people come to engage in something, so there's a whole lot happening. We've got workshops, we've got a big event coming up, the House of Horrors, which is going to have hundreds of young people coming through a massive maze of horrifying scenes and ghouly characters and things like that, so we're working really hard on that. Every event that we do involves a whole lot of workshopping and training young people in event management and things like that, so with that one event we've got acting workshops, makeup, special effects, project management, event organising and things like that, funding applications, so young people learn from the whole experience. So that's one thing we've got coming up. We've got music workshops, drum tuition, vocal tuition. There's a whole lot of different dance. We've got from salsa to belly dancing to hip-hop and urban dance practices go on here. So we support a lot of other groups as well who use the studios and things like that. We have a couple of big projects. One is with the social sector trials. It's about engaging young people into education. So we're looking at young people who are showing signs of disengaging from education, working with them and mentoring them back into education, and making sure that they're okay, in school. And then the other big project is the intergenerational program, which is about attracting volunteers who have some practical experience, some skills behind them, some young people who want to learn some skills, pairing them up and engaging them in a whole lot of work around the place. So we've got our urban garden, which is all about creative ways of gardening and producing food. From there, we're bringing food into the cafe, learning about healthy cooking and cheap and easy meals and things like that. We've got maintenance, so young people can learn how to sand and paint a wall and build things, and so we're working with a lot of other organisations around that as well. So those are a few of the things that are happening now. So it's a busy place. People are coming here all throughout the day. It can be a very busy place now.
And so how did the students or the youth find out about this place? What kind of things are you doing to promote it, and where do you get them from? Is it all walks of life? Is it from the schools? Where do they mainly come from?
I think all of the above, depending on what it is. Different tutors will attract different young people and they'll do their own kind of marketing. We get behind that as well. We have we do school tours and try and engage young people, get young people interested in the events coming up. So House of Horrors, we'll be doing a tour around all the schools to promote that. We've got Waiariki Institute of Technology Performing Arts Academy coming to do a concert, and we're hoping that will turn into an ongoing relationship where we'll be working with them a lot around the creative arts, and hopefully getting some young people interested in furthering and developing their creative skills through the Polytech.
Okay, well, let's go and have a look at some of these things that you're doing, specifically the garden.
Great.
So we're out in the garden?
Yes. So this is one of the big projects that is happening at the moment. We've had volunteers and young people engaged in building everything that we see behind us. There's various methods of gardening which I don't know everything about, but we've got some herbs and things growing in those vertical gardens. We've got a keyhole garden, which is an international, I forget where it's from, international idea where the compost is put in the middle and it feeds out to the rest of the garden. We've got a few thousand worms in our worm farm. Each of them are named individually by Vina. And so everything is about growing from scratch, from the garden to the table, and it's about educating young people and also handing on skills that older people have, how to grow food, how to cook healthily. Everything here is about tying things in with different things. So we've got our health services here, which is a free service for young people to gain various types of different health services. We hope to link some of these projects up with health and recreation and fitness type projects, and so there's a lot happening.
So it sounds to me like healthy body, healthy mind, healthy soul.
Aye, yes.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
That was the new manager of the Rotorua Youth Centre, Steve Holmes, speaking with Melanie Groves. If you have a news event TV Rotorua can support, call our office and talk with one of the team on 0734 88984 or email news@tvrotorua.co.nz. Thanks for watching. From all the team here at City News, Kia Māori.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.